I'm not a tech head.
Well, I'm not either, and I really appreciate you agreeing to talk to me because honestly, when I talk to you, Larry, I don't feel like I'm a bagpipe player either.
Oh,
Just cause here's what I'm gonna do, Larry. I'm gonna tell you the things I know about you, and then you fill in the blanks, okay?
sure.
Here's what I know. I know that you play uilleann pipes, which I think is just awesome. That is
Uh,
my dearest dream is to get and learn to play a set of uilleann pipes. I know that you have every single bagpipe tune that has ever been written stored in your head, and it's accurately filed under its proper name. And I know that you are as far as I can tell, the one and only WUSPBA rep in WUSPBA, and you are present at every competition I think that I've ever been to. Now you fill in the blanks.
okay. Well, what, which blank first?
Well, whatever you feel called to. Take me through it chronologically. Where did you
Okay.
grow up? How did you get interested in this kind of music? And it'll probably flow from there.
Oh, great. Well, Springville's my hometown, and I spent a few years away and then came back. And as far as my piping experience has been, ever since I was a little kid, I think the earliest movie with bagpipes I remember seeing was, we call it Gunga Din, but if you do the poetry, it's Gunga Din. And it was just exciting to hear that, and that music, and after that I tuned in whenever I could. I would go watch the municipal parades, and as soon as the bagpipe band had passed, the parade was over for me. And
That's all that mattered, huh?
that was it. That was all I was there for. Rest of it interested other people, but not me as much. But
Do you happen to remember what pipe bands you were seeing or hearing in the parades?
yeah, it was always the Salt Lake Scots. They did the ones, a lot of the local ones down here. The Utah Pipe Band was very active up north at the time, and when I joined, there were only the two pipe bands, to my knowledge, in the state.
That sounds
And
accurate,
and so, but it was always those Salt Lake Scots and the Red Scott tartan that went by, and I just loved the sound. And later they made an appearance in the movie The Devil's Brigade, filmed out at Camp Williams here in Utah.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And and of course, it was a great movie all around with great actors. But as soon as the pipe band passed, every time, to me that was the highlight of the movie for me.
I've seen some clips and images from that, just from being local and knowing some people who are in the band, who reminisce about it. But I haven't seen the movie yet. Do I remember right that it was actually a movie about? I want to say it was about the Italian army. Is that wrong though?
Well, it was a combination. It was forces in the American Army and the Canadian Army that joined together to form what became known as the Devil's Brigade. I guess, according to the movie, it was christened by one of the German officers that they'd captured. But and it dealt with their combat experience in Italy.
Oh, so that's why I was thinking Italian.
Yeah.
Okay. And was it in the movie at least? Was it the Canadian members who brought pipes with them to this
Yes.
to this whole outfit?
Yes, yeah, they were led into Camp Williams following the Salt Lake Scots, and they had trained the Utah National Guard to march British Army style. So yeah, but anyway, of course, after seeing that, I had more desire to do it, and it was always a lifelong dream to pick up a set of pipes, but there was nobody around here that I knew until it was summer of 1979. I saw a photograph on the cover of I guess it would have been the Salt Lake Tribune with three pipers, and I picked up the phone and dialed one of them, and I just happened to get with the one that was most willing to help me, and so I met with him. let me blow his pipes for the first time. I almost passed out.
Oh, is that how he started you? Give you an idea.
Yeah.
A challenge.
Yeah, and he said, okay, now you need to buy a practice chanter and buy this book called The College of Piping, Book One. And so I went away and purchased it and called him, and he goes, really, I didn't think I'd hear from you again. I think that's the way it's gone for most of us that are, willing to take on students and teach. We start a lot of people, and after a lesson or two, they see it's going to be more of a challenge than they'd anticipated, and then they're content to continue their dream by listening to others play it. And
hey, nothing wrong with that. But of course, if you teach a few people, you kind of have to adjust your own expectations, or you'll start getting down on yourself, thinking you're driving people away from it or something.
Yeah. I remember after the movie Braveheart came out, I started 7 students one night all around my kitchen table on practice chanters. The next week, only 5 came back, and eventually there was only 1, and later she quit because she got pregnant, and then, of course, raising a kid, and that didn't get back to it. But then years later, I met her, and she was registering her son as a solo competitor at the Payson Scottish Festival.
Well, that's great.
So, and she was playing her grandfather's pipes, who had piped with the Salt Lake Scots as well, and so her son is now playing them, keeping the tradition alive in the family.
That's really cool. I love it when I meet somebody who's got, their great uncle's pipes or their grandpa's pipes or stuff like that. I hope that my David Booth pipes will be played by multiple generations eventually. That would be really cool.
Yeah. One of the pipers that inspired me the most in my early days was Don Baxter. He passed away recently, but his Rob Baxter is, Rob.
I do know Rob. Yeah, he's playing his pipes.
Yeah, he's playing those old Hardy bagpipes. Don probably acquired those in the early 1960s, and as is typical with the pipes, my first set was also a set of Hardys. The imitation ivory on them changes colors, and
it sure does.
kind of goes through an orange to a deep orange, and
those are deep orange at this point. That's for sure.
I don't think they could change anymore. Yeah. But, so it is really cool to see those traditions stay alive, and I have my 2 sons are playing as well, and there's other families around here like the Barclays with the Utah Pipe Band.
They've got a multi-generational thing going on.
Yeah. Their grandpa, their dad, then the boys that are my age, Jim and John, and then their sons, and I guess they're probably
some of the grandkids,
right? Getting onto the grandsons.
Oh man, that's cool.
Yeah, it really is. And then several years after I started, then another real exciting event was when Jerry Chatwin started up the Payson High School Pipe Band, and that's still going well. As you know.
Didn't he start up the pipe band and also the Scottish Festival there? Wasn't that his thing too, or am I remembering wrong?
Well, I think it was because of the growth of that early pipe band and their successes, in the high school marching band events and that helped get it going. Early founders down there, I remember in particular Helen Scott. I worked with her for a number of years, and she was just a real go-getter. And
I volunteered for her at Petite Neat for a little while, the museum that's there in Payson.
As a teacher?
No, just as I mopped and stuff.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I sure liked Helen, and I could, it was funny that before she passed away, it was like you'd see her, and she was having a little bit of a hard time talking and stuff, but she was still up and around doing everything.
Yeah.
And I remember somebody saying to me, who was there doing community theater with me, I love Helen, I'm going to be sad when she goes. And I remember thinking to myself, she's never going to go, just look at her, it's like she stood the test of time. She's never going to go.
Well, part of her may have gone, but we're talking about her right now. And
Yeah.
she, to raise money for the Scottish Festival, for 2 winters, we had a practice chanter class going on down there, and I think 2 nights a week it might have been. We had quite a few people come in and go through the program, and
Was
so,
that held at Petitney at the building?
yeah, yes, it was.
Now, did that feed in any way into White Peak's Centennial Pipe Band, which started later and did their practices there, or was that just, it
No,
happens to be a community center, so it's likely that people would go there?
Yeah, I think White Peaks was more with alumni of the Payson High School. Don Smith was very instrumental there, and put a lot of his life into that band.
Yeah.
And we did have pipers from the Payson High School band come in and help as instructors, for the beginners. We had a beginner and an intermediate level.
And now, Larry, do you still play with the Salt Lake Scots?
I took a number of years off, and I am currently playing with the Salt Lake Scots with a grade 5 band. And it's this year, I guess January of 2020, we launched our grade 5 band with a lot of very fine students, and unfortunately we haven't taken the field this year, and I'm afraid no, I'm afraid with the next round of auditions I'm going to lose some of them, because they've done so well. I think they could advance into the grade 4 band, but we're continuing to have our practices over Zoom, and it's quite well attended. But we're all aching to get out on the field and rehearse together again, and get the big pipes and make the big noise.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I've never wanted to do a parade so bad as I do right now. Take a summer off, and it's like, give me that horse poop. I don't even care.
I know. Yeah.
Now, so how old were you when you started playing the bagpipes?
Let's see, I would have been about 23.
And at that point, were you living with your parents, or had you got married? Like, what was the home situation?
Well, I was married for about 2 years, and then, like I said, I saw the photograph that included. I can still remember the 3 pipers. It was Robert Means, Bruce Cowley, and Tom Matlock. And I just picked Tom Matlock of the 3, and it turned out he was teaching Robert Means, and so we got together for some rehearsals, and then he took us up to meet the Salt Lake Scots, which was my dream from my younger days, and then we later joined in with the Salt Lake Scots as members, probably in late '79, I think, early '80. I just can't remember the date.
And at that time, when you're getting up on the chanter and then getting into the pipes and then getting with the band and getting your kilt and all this stuff, what's your wife thinking?
Well, that was part of the. I told her, I said, this has been my lifelong dream to play the bagpipes, and I said, but you tell me if you don't want me to, I won't call this guy. But I really, can I, Mom? Can I?
Yeah.
I want to call Tom Matlock and see what I can do about it. And she goes, yeah, go ahead. And she thought it'd blow over. And at the time, all of the local pipers were doing business with the Scottish Shopper in Seattle, and her parents lived in Seattle. So she and we just had a newborn, and so they went up to. That would have been '79. Yeah, she went to Seattle to visit her parents, and picked me up a practice chanter and College of Piping Book 1, and brought him back to me. And a month later, I was annoying my father, who was also my employer at the time, for a loan of $600 to buy my first set of Hardy pipes and the carrying case that went with it, and
You're annoying him with those questions, not just annoying him with your practice chanter.
Well, annoying him with those, which became a huge distraction for our business.
Yeah.
So later, whenever there was a gig, I would go and leave the work undone. So
Yeah.
he had a struggle with it as well. But I'd practice in our living room. We lived in a fourplex, and
Your
I'd
neighbors
practice.
had to struggle with it too.
Yeah, once in a while, I'd get, I could feel the vibes coming from the other apartment. So
Yeah. You know, my wife and I lived in a fourplex for a while, and I was always worried about playing my pipes at all. Even I had some small practice pipes, but even those I was worried I was going to bug some folks. But then the neighbors upstairs, turned out the lady who lived up there was a clogger, and she would clog in her kitchen in the morning while she was making her smoothies and stuff. And I went, you know what? I'm not worried about this anymore. I'm just going to play what I want.
yeah. Well, I had neighbors that liked it and neighbors that didn't like it, and so I would try to annoy the most people whenever I could.
Now, I think so. Most of the folks who are going to listen to this are going to be members of the Garden Valley Pipe Band. Though, you know, I'd like to interview a lot more people here in the local area. So maybe more folks too. But to me, you're a fixture of the competitions. How did you end up being a WUSPBA rep?
I can't remember when it was, 2005, somewhere in there. I I was contacted by my pipe major at the time and asked if I would attend what was then known as an AGM. It was for the Great Basin branch, and so I went and got acquainted with some fantastic people there. Of course, I already knew Andrew Morrill. He was stepping down as the president. And
Had he been the branch president at the time, or had he been the WUSPBA
this
president?
this was the Great Basin branch,
Okay,
and
okay.
so I didn't know anything about it. And then they said, "Okay, we're opening nominations," and Rob Rowe nominated me to be Great Basin branch president. Yeah, and so I sat there and I go, "Well, you can vote for yourself, and then you have 7 votes representing the grade 5 band of the Salt Lake Scots." So I did. And I cast all my votes for the other guy, and I still won. And so I spent 2 years, and we had a lot of fun. We had a workshop for mass bands. Mickey Shaw is a great drum major from the West Coast, and she came up and spent a weekend with us up at Davis.
Camp Davis.
No, it was at Davis High School in
Okay.
up in Kaysville, and then we had another workshop using Payson High School, and Sean Newton was there. I remember I took Sean's class. He was teaching the Strathspey reel, and then
Was that fun to take a class from Sean?
oh, is he going to hear this?
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely he will, and he's gonna love it if you bag on him a little, I'm sure.
I enjoyed it. He's very knowledgeable. He was, it was great. Working with him. I think it was the Strathspey was the Caledonian Society of London or something like that. It has a bunch of triplets in it, and I hadn't heard the tune before. I can't remember the name of the reel, but Sean was a lot of fun to learn from, and
So, in spite of your best efforts, you end up president of the Great Basin branch in WUSPBA.
Yeah.
And is it just by virtue of having been there, then you knew some of the WUSPBA people, and so then when they needed a WUSPBA rep, it was like, well, Larry could do it.
Yeah. Well, what happened was during my term, the previous WUSPBA rep stepped down, and I needed to find somebody to do it. It's by appointment of the branch president, and so I think I conned Bruce Baxter into helping out, and then I don't remember who else. And then after, when it was time for the next elections, we were down at Payson High School. We held our AGM there because, I can't remember. Is it Carrie Welton? Was that her name?
Carrie, yeah.
Okay, she was able to get the building for us, and so we held it down there, and I just said, "Okay, you're next president." And I let him know. I said, "It's not going to be me." And so, I can't remember who followed me, but he asked me to be the WUSPBA rep, and so.
So it was like, you're the next president. He said, fine, but you're the next president.
Yeah. So I helped. We stayed involved with him for a long while, for the next 2 years, and then I expected to be let go. But it's a job that few people wanted. But I really enjoyed it because I get to know everybody, and I don't, I get to mingle with all of the bands and get acquainted with everybody, and so it would be kind of a disappointment to me now to
enjoying it now.
Yeah.
You shouldn't say that out loud, or you're never gonna be free.
Yeah. Well, it was one of those jobs nobody wanted to do, but you go to the games, you get in for free. Some of the games give you the VIP treatment, and you score a free lunch out of it usually, which is better pay than I get from my regular job. No, I'm kidding, of course. But and so you get there early in the morning, and a lot of the work has been done by the games organizer. In Payson, we've had. I've worked with a lot of great people there, the games organizers, and so they've done a lot of the heavy lifting. I'm primarily there to make sure that the rules are followed, that people are properly rostered ahead of the time, so there's no disqualifications, and then I handle the score sheets and post the results to the WUSPBA person, and then mail them to the band and solo registrars for recording, and carry a stopwatch and time the timed events and stand out in the sun for longer than I like to, but it's and on some of those days it's nice not to have to wear a kilt.
I'm with you, man. For a few years it's great. It's really cool. It's like every time you can put a kilt on, heck yeah, I'll put it on, and I'll wear it all day. But after a little bit, I kind of start feeling like, I just want to wear pants.
Yeah.
Sometimes I wish I could get hired for a gig and they wouldn't expect me to show up in a kilt.
Yeah. Well, then later on, because people got to know me around the Great Basin branch, we went over to the Intermountain branch and helped the Grand Valley games at Grand Junction.
Oh, yeah.
Their first year, and we had a real good time over there. So, we reached out a little bit. Back in about...
was that, am I wrong, was that like 05, 06 or so?
Oh, I can't even remember. Everything is blended.
I might have got to go to those games as well.
Yeah.
At the same time. Yeah. Well, go on. Sorry.
Anyway, let's see. And then later on... they created the position of chief steward for all of WUSPBA, which is kind of like the overseer of all of the WUSPBA reps. So each branch is supposed to have provide their WUSPBA reps as part of the service to the games. The games pay to sanction, and so WUSPBA provides all of the score sheets and then representation at the contests. And that doesn't always happen, but it's part of the package that the games organizers have paid to have, and so it is kind of a vital. I guess it is vital to the event to make sure that someone is there to represent WUSPBA and the contest rules.
Yeah, I think this is really, honestly, very, very interesting, useful information, because I think a lot of us as just players, competitors, pipers and drummers, of course we're very aware of who the judges are. Mm-hmm. And we do become aware of who the stewards are for any game, because it's usually the person who runs up and tells us, hey, you got to play here or there, at what time.
Yeah.
But beyond that, I think for a lot of us, the who is doing, right? Who is who and what they are doing is all kind of a mystery. And part of that is possibly just because our interest goes about as far as remembering our MSR for that day. You know what I mean?
I do, yes.
So I think it's really valuable to be able to hear you kind of describe what it is that that these different people in different positions do for the game.
Yeah, well, a contest has to pay money to be sanctioned, and by doing so, this is part of the package that they get back in return.
Yeah. Gotcha. So then, Larry, where did you branch into? I know you do like some house sessions for music and stuff like
Yeah.
that. Where did that branch off from?
Well, back in about 1990-ish, 1990, 91, I became familiar with the Scottish smallpipes. A group called the Tannehill Weavers. One of them always had a piper, and then I heard this new sound. I go, man, that guy sounds like he's playing something else. And looked into it, and it was a piper named Ian McInnes and playing the Scottish small pipes. So I got a big interest in that. They're bellows blown, just like the uilleann pipes. Well, they're mouth blown and bellows, but I chose the bellows blown in big part because I'm lazy and figure it's easier to pump air with the bellows under the right arm.
You can snack while you play too, right?
You bet you can. You don't have to worry about blowing stuff into the bag.
Yeah.
And anyway, a friend and his wife were missionaries in Scotland, and he sent me some stuff, and met a guy that told me he bought a set of small pipes from a maker named Hamish Moore. And Hamish was instrumental in the early days of the development of, I guess, of bringing back the bellows blown Scottish pipes.
Yeah, I see that name all over the forums and stuff. Hamish Moore small pipes are a hot item.
Yeah, and so he had a couple of albums out that I listened to, and over and over and over, I pretty much wore them out. And then later on, it was actually Christmas of '91. My wife contacted him and ordered me a set. And then they came in early '92. There was a workshop out in the mountains above Santa Rosa, California, and I attended that. And that's where I first became acquainted with these open sessions, because the small pipes will tune to the other instruments easily.
A quote unquote real pitch.
Yeah, A440, and so I spent a whole week learning new tunes. A lot of them were compositions of Hamish Moore's, and a new style of playing, which kind of combined the Scottish embellishments with Irish ones, and then I spent the whole week with my cassette tape recorder going, and I recorded every minute of that thing, and then I spent the next winter working and polishing off those tunes so I could actually play in the next session. And when I got out there, they repeated the workshop in '93, and I attended there, and when the session started, they didn't play any of the same tunes from last year. So.
You showed up with your notes. You were ready to go.
Yeah, I had it all memorized, and anyway, and so after 1994, Hamish told us that he would be discontinuing the California one, and because he was going to be spending the whole summer on Cape Breton Island. It's someplace that I had never heard of. That Cape Breton is part of Nova Scotia. It's an actual island separated by what they call a causeway, and they bridged that so you can drive to it. It used to be connected only by a ferry, but he said he would teach at the Gaelic College, and if I wanted to continue, then that's where I should go. So, of course, we took the whole family and went out there the next year. And
followed him from California to Nova Scotia. Man.
Yes, and he invited us to stay at his home, and we visited his home in Scotland and attended Celtic connections with him, and I got exposed there to a lot of uilleann piping. Liam O'Flynn, Paddy Keenan, were two of the big names, and attended a lecture by Liam O'Flynn and got a minute just to talk to him, and I really didn't know much about him, but I certainly learned later on. And then in Scotland we played a session in a pub. But anyway, back to Nova Scotia, they had the step dance, tradition, and they kept it alive from old Scotland. And there's a big, beautiful history, and a lot of the piping tradition and that has been kept alive by a piper named Barry Shears. And if people are interested in good old, and I mean old Scottish, dance music, it would be through Barry Shears, and that's what we played. We play here at my house.
Do you recall how Shears is spelled, just in case someone wants to look it up?
Yeah, Shears.
Okay.
He lives up in British Columbia now. The winters there are a little bit more mild than they are in Nova Scotia. But at the Gaelic College, we had our classes, which included, there was fiddle class, Gaelic language, Gaelic song. I would say this, somebody said, well, tell me about Cape Breton. And I said, well, I believe that's where God rested on the seventh day. There's a spirit alive there, and a tradition and a history that's wonderful. And
well, I know that's got to be close to Prince Edward Island, the setting
It
for
is.
the Anne of Green Gables books, which are, I think that sort of maybe the most important defining characteristics of those is the setting, just how beautiful it is.
It's very close. I mean, well, I believe there's a bridge now you can drive from Nova Scotia. Yeah, you can drive from Nova Scotia over to Prince Edward Island, and but there at the Gaelic College they combine all of these. So if you're interested in Gaelic language and Gaelic song, the step dance, that's with the hands to the side. It's not at all like the Highland fling, and the foot, the feet produce a percussion that actually accompanies the music. And so reels, strathspeys, jigs, all have their own dance steps. And we went out in '95 and came back, and we were immediately homesick for the place. So my wife invited some neighbors over for ice cream, but before they got the ice cream, they had to step dance, and she'd taken the classes, and so she taught them, and I played my small pipes, and
awesome.
Some of our neighbors said, hey, it's not worth a bowl of ice cream, see you later. But then later on, now my family's, history with Nova Scotia went over 10 summers in a row. And in the fall, there's a festival called Celtic Colors. And my wife and I attended there 3 times for that. And so over 13 times in 10 years, I did what I could to get Cape Breton music ingrained, and so then
Man, that's cool.
a couple of the girls from the McMaster family, Aaron and Alana, went over and they learned the step dance, and Aaron went back a number of times, and so when we have our sessions here at my house, Aaron comes down and she teaches the steps, calls the steps, and then the musicians all play the music. And we've got a book. It's called Saturday Sessions. It's on Facebook, and we have a book of our arrangements. Robert McDonald composed some, and he arranged everything, put it in with the chords and all of that. And so anybody can get that free of charge, and pick up some of those great tunes. There's a mix of Irish. There's some Irish jigs, and of course the Scottish, and then Robert's compositions.
I'm going to look that up, Larry. I want to come and join you sometime.
Well, I'd love it.
That's too fun.
As far as I'm concerned, a session can never be big enough. Guitars, whistles, small pipes. We even had a guy bring a tuba one time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we've had a string bass, accordions, and of course we haven't been able to do one this year because of the COVID. But we tried to have them monthly here at the house, and everybody is welcome. And we've tried to combine it with some food, and depending on the time of year, I've got a fire pit. We'll build a big fire out, and so people can stay warm. And but we've taken it on the road. We've played a barn up in Alpine, and used to, when there was regular musicians, We play weddings and that, but you know, we really don't get together to rehearse. We rehearse on stage. You know, while we're performing, it's meant to be relaxed, and I call it a no-fault session, because no matter what you play, it's right. You just got to be playing, and get 3 or 4 baron players, and they're not playing together, and you know, you have to kind of concentrate on your own timing. But you look and see the smiles on people's faces as they're playing, and I don't care if they're. I just don't care what comes out, as long as people are together. There's such a positive experience to bring people together, and that's Carlos Nunez is a Galician piper from northern Spain, and he says the beauty of the Celtic music, or the strength of something anyway. The quote goes, I think it is, the strength of the Celtic music is the community, and that's bringing, you know, singers, dancers, musicians, and just listeners, toe tappers, you know, together. And that's the real magic, and this kind of thing wouldn't have survived around had it not been for the pipe bands. You know, sometimes we get fixated, I guess, only on competition, and we leave out, you know, that important entertainment or human element of you know, just the beauty of the music and bringing people together. Competition tends to take up a lot of our time, because we rehearse over and over and over, but in the process we're leaving just the opportunity to learn hundreds of other tunes completely out of it, and you know, there's so much that's missed, because, you know, but again, say what you will about competition, that's the thing that has helped preserve the other stuff, because people they see, wow, you know, here's a penny whistle, for example. If you want to learn to play the uilleann pipes, get a penny whistle. You know, that's, I don't know if anybody else has called it that, and this may not be correct for everybody, but a penny whistle is could be kind of like the practice chanter for the uilleann pipes, because of the, you know, some of the notes are the same, the expression, the grace noting is the same. Well, can be the same.
Sure, it can be.
You know.
I mean, I've heard it described as like Celtic jazz, right? The uilleann pipes.
Yeah.
You can kind of do what you want in a lot of ways.
There's more notes, you know. You cross finger and get, you know, some sharps and some naturals, you know, off of the scale, and you know, and it by itself, you know, it's a beautiful instrument, but still combining it with a guitar player strumming chords. Cape Breton, they always get out a piano, and the Cape Breton style pianos, a lot of chording and a lot of bouncing sound along and so you hear a fantastic fiddle player like Buddy McMaster. He by himself was a big talent, but you add the keyboard, you know, and some of the other sounds along with it, it fills it up.
Yeah, it gets magical.
Yeah.
And are the uilleann pipes usually your go-to instrument for these sessions, or do you hop?
No. I primarily play the Scottish small pipes. Yeah. My uilleann pipes purchased from a maker in Missouri named Kirk Lynch, and at the time I purchased them, you know, you buy a practice set, which is a chanter, and a bellows and a bag. Then you can add your drones, and then that becomes what they define as, or is defined by some as a half set. And then there's the full set of regulators, which, you know, produces that, you know, there's keys on them, and it just opens up another note or another. You can play a chord, you know, with those. So I believe a full set of uilleann pipes could have 7 reeds. And
yeah, I've watched videos of the what's his name? I think it's Innes, Seamus Innes.
Yeah, yeah.
And you watch him playing with the, you know, the heel of his hand, getting those chords out, and sometimes rhythmically too. So it's like
Yeah, that's right.
Man, it's cool to watch.
Yeah. There takes a little bit more coordination, you know, but it's nice that you can sit down to play those. I've kind of put the uilleann pipes away a little bit, well, mostly over the last few years because I've got a lot of band tunes to learn. I went back to the Salt Lake Scots, like I said, a couple of years ago, and I enjoy the association. You know, there's a lot of great people there. Plus, you know, it's where I started. Although I've got a photograph on my wall, and from the time I started to now, most of the pipers on that you can see on the front rows of that are dead. So,
have you played with any of the other local bands?
Oh well, yeah, I visited. I visited Garden Valley for a short time, but I would have liked to have been more involved. But you know, a business and yeah, just wasn't time for a lot of things. There was a band briefly started up in Provo by Gordon Nickel and Ed Terrace, and it became known as the Deseret Highlanders, and that I played with for a short time during its period, and that was where I had my first introduction to P-rock. Gordon Nickel is an excellent P-rock player, and he taught me my first one. And
Do you remember which P-rock it was?
Yeah, it was called the Glen is Mine, and I still play that a little bit. More. I like
P-rock's kind of got a groundswell of popularity right now.
Yeah, it does, and it's fantastic. The early my early piping experience, P-rock was never mentioned, except by Gordon, and it was never part of the competitions. However, it is now, and I've heard some great P-rocks. There's the name slips me, but actually there's a member of the Wasatch District that plays the Glen is Mine, and I've stood and listened to him.
It's got to be, I'm not remembering his name either, but it's got to be the guy who also plays for all the dancers, right?
Let's see, that would be Chris Johnson.
That's who I was thinking of, Chris Johnson.
Yeah. Chris is with, no, he's with the Salt Lake Scots.
Oh, is he? Because I've heard Chris P-rock before, and he was very steady and harmonic and beautiful, so I thought maybe it was him.
Yeah, actually, I was talking to him after this online contest that Your HBer put together, and he played the Glen is Mine for that one. I remember commenting on how much I enjoyed that one. Trevor DeMoss, he's the pipe major of the Salt Lake Scots. Trevor and Chris compete a lot, and they're doing quite well. They're both playing grade 2, but I love P-rock now. I attended Piping Hot Summer Drummer through the Zoom platform this year, and I had during this you're allowed to have a private lesson with one of the instructors, and Donald Lindsay was my private instructor.
Yeah, really.
We went over McFourish's Salute, which is a newer P-rock written by Donald McLeod, I don't know, 70 years ago. So it's considered to be, one of the new ones, and it's also one of the shorter ones, which I like.
That's sometimes necessary. Right?
Yeah. I don't have the endurance that I used to have now, but that one's done in about 7 minutes, and it's played, maybe considered by some to be a little bit brisk for a P-rock. Being a salute, it moves along quite well, and so.
I know for me, my first introduction to P-rock was actually the 6/8 March P-rock of Donald Dew. And I had no idea what a P-rock was, for years and years. I was just like, another weird word in a bagpipe tune title. So.
Yeah, it was a very weird word with a very weird spelling.
Oh, yeah.
And, I love that march.
It's one of my favorites, too.
Yeah, we played it with all the Blue Bonnets or over the border. When I first joined the Salt Lake Scots, we used to have this huge parade repertoire. And, that's kind of gone away because we've spent so much time working on a couple of sets to compete with. But yeah, Payrock O'Donnell do. I had to look it up. So, and I believe one of the English names is Black Donald's March.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Do, of course, is black for in Gaelic, like you scan do.
Yeah. Well, Larry, if I didn't have a hard 9 o'clock, I'd just keep talking to you. I hope that I could convince you to talk to me again.
Oh, I'd love to. Yeah, this is fun. It's kind of forced me to, you know, I guess wake up some old memories, and I didn't realize, you know, I think about these events and all of those pipers that I started with, you know, that have died now, and most recently, of course, Don Baxter is just one of my favorite people on earth.
Yeah, a lot of people miss him, that's for sure.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, as we put a button in this one, though, I'm curious if you have any, either that you've mentioned already or that you haven't mentioned, any real good recommendations for anybody who listens to this for bagpiping music that they ought to listen to, artists, groups, etc.
I really like the folk groups that employ the bagpipes, the big pipes, the small pipes. Tannehill Weavers was one of my very favorite ones. Their early albums, when they first brought in a piper named Alan MacLeod, and the excitement of a song called Johnny Cope with the pipes playing the Athol Highlanders. But anything by new and old by the Tannehill Weavers. The Battlefield Band also always had a good piper and very, very exciting music. As far as the solo pipers go, of course, you know, there's always Donald MacLeod albums. If you're interested in P-Rock, he's got a full set of P-Rock albums where he does some speaking, he does some counteract.
Yeah, that's right. I've listened to some of those. He's got like 10 albums like that, right? He speaks it first and then plays it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he has his own collection of compositions. But if somebody's looking for books, I have the full set of Donald MacLeod on my shelf. There's actually a guy in Scotland who's selling, who you might check out online. It's called Blowpipes and Striking Drum, if you want to build your own personal library. And of course, Barry Shears tops my list. Unfortunately, Hamish Moore only put out one book, and I don't know if it's available anymore. My solo piping that I really enjoy listening to is, among them is Anne Gray. She was one of my instructors at the Gaelic College, and she's put out 2 books, but her first one is no longer in print, but the second one has got a lot of great music in it. You can cut me off anytime I'm going too long.
Yeah, I've still got 60 more seconds, so give me a little more.
Well, now I draw a blank.
Well.
You go to YouTube and watch these. Some of these old John Burgess. I've got a John Burgess CD, but you can still see videos of him with Seamus McNeil on YouTube.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's just, I don't even know where to begin. You know.
Yeah. Well, put down a list or something so we can talk.